You know that moment when the kids are all in bed and you sit down to relax and then your baby wakes up? This is very deflating and you wonder, what do I do? In this post, we're going to talk all about what to do when this happens so that you can address it in the moment and prevent it in the future. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Valerie. I blog at babywisemom.com. I am the mother to 4 children. I have been blogging since the year 2007 and have helped thousands and thousands of parents with their parenting questions over the years. The first thing to address and check in this situation is hunger. So you want to make sure your baby is not hungry. The best way to do that is to feed your baby and see what happens. Does your baby take a full feed? If yes, your baby was probably hungry, which either means there's a growth spurt going on or your baby didn't get enough food that day. If this becomes a persistent thing, then you might need to add a feeding to your day, or you might want to consider cluster feeding. I have a blog post and a video all about cluster feeding, or you might want to add in a dream feed. I also have a blog post and video all about the dream feed. The second thing to check is if your baby is in pain. So if your baby's in pain, your baby's not going to be able to sleep well. None of us sleep well if we're in pain. So, is your baby teething? Does your baby have gas? Does your baby have reflux? Are your baby's footed pajamas too small and squeezing the little feet? So you want to consider all the different possibilities that could be causing pain and then address that pain. Fix the pain. The third thing to think about is the issue that baby can't fall asleep independently. So if your baby cannot fall asleep alone, then your baby really can wake up at every sleep transition, including the first one after bedtime. Sleep transitions happen about every 45 minutes when your baby is sleeping. So if your baby cannot fall asleep independently, that can lead to waking up, and so you want to consider helping your baby learn to sleep independently. This will mean some form of sleep training. It doesn't matter how you sleep train, it just matters that you sleep train. There are no cry solutions out there. There are also cry it out solutions, and there are a variety of ways to do cry it out. So find a sleep training solution that works best for you and go there. If your baby is using a pacifier, it might be that the pacifier is falling out of your baby's mouth and that wakes your baby up, and your baby cannot fall asleep without the pacifier. So you might want to consider getting rid of the pacifier, which you might not want to do because that's not necessarily fun, but that is a possible need. If you don't want to go there, then you'll have to just wait until your baby is old enough to reinsert the pacifier independently, which typically happens between ages 6 to 8 months old. The fourth possible reason that your baby might be waking shortly after bedtime is that there's something about bedtime that is off. It might be that you need to change up your bedtime routine and make it a little more soothing for your baby. It might be that you need to change the timing of bedtime, so you might need more time between that last nap and bedtime, or maybe you have too much time between that last nap and bedtime. Most babies ideally have bedtime between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. So if that's not the time your bedtime is, then consider that. If your baby is younger than 4 months old, then typically your baby will have 4 naps in a day. Newborns can have more than that, like young newborns. If your baby is older than 4 months old, then you should be at 3 naps a day. Around 6 to 10 months, you might dropped down. Well, you will drop down to 2 naps a day. So that leads us to our next possible cause, and that is that your baby might need to drop a daytime nap. So if your baby is taking the incorrect number of naps for your baby's age, it may be time to drop a daytime nap to help fix that bedtime issue. Conversely, your baby might need more daytime sleep. If your baby has enough naps for her age, but the naps are really short, then you want to work on getting those naps longer. So you'll want to work on fixing those short naps. I do have a video and a lot of blog posts on how to fix short naps. So be sure to consult those if your baby is taking naps that are less than 1.5 hours at least, that it is accepting the last nap of the day. Another possible cause for baby waking shortly after bedtime is that your baby is working on a new skill, which is super exciting until it's time to sleep. So if your baby is working on crawling or talking or standing or rolling over or even just little fine motor skills with those hands, your baby might be super excited about it and really want to work on that no matter what time it is, even if it's bedtime. So your baby might get that little power nap in, that first sleep transition comes, and your baby realizes, oh, I've got this fun new skill to work on, so I'm going to do that instead of sleeping. So that can be the cause of your baby waking after bedtime. I do have a blog post and a video all about helping your baby when your baby's new skills are disrupting sleep, so be sure to check that out. Another possible cause for your baby waking shortly after bedtime is that your sleep environment isn't ideal. Maybe it's too hot, maybe it's too cold, maybe it's too noisy, you need a sound machine, maybe it's too bright and you need blackout curtains. So consider the sleep environment and make sure it's ideal for your baby. Another possible cause for waking shortly after bedtime is a sleep regression. We all hate the sleep regressions, right? Sleep regressions cause sleep issues. If you think this might be it, I do have a blog post and a video, so be sure to check those out to get some clarification and information on what to do, what ages sleep regressions are, and ideas for how to make it through that particular sleep regression for your baby's current age. Another possible reason for waking shortly after bedtime is that your baby is overstimulated. That means your baby either was awake too long or just that your baby had too much action going on during your baby's awake time. So you really need to pay attention and make sure you respect what your baby can handle. Different babies can handle different amounts of stimulation. It's not just an age thing. So make sure that you are cognizant of what your baby is capable of handling and that you give full respect to that. And on the flip side, sometimes babies wake up because they are understimulated. So they didn't get either enough wake time or enough action going on. This is more likely to happen in an older baby, about 8 months or older. Typically younger than that, the baby is going to be overstimulated, not under. But once you get into that 8 to 10 month range, it really starts to become common to have understimulation, especially if we've been really careful about not overstimulating. But as your baby gets older, your baby can handle more. When your baby's young, everything's new. Everything in the world is new to your baby. So everything's very stimulating. But as your baby ages and gains experience, then not everything's new. The dresser isn't new, or somebody in your family walking by isn't new. Certain sights and sounds and smells all become just comfortable and part of your baby's life and no longer stimulate and teach your baby. So you have to start to be aware of that and start to add in mental and physical stimulation and make sure your baby is getting enough of both. The final thing is nightmares. This is highly unlikely because nightmares typically happen much later in the night. The reason it's highly unlikely is not because babies never have nightmares, because they can. It is because nightmares typically happen later in the night. Typically soon after bedtime, kids have night terrors, but babies do not have night terrors. So I put that there for you to think about, but just know that's highly unlikely. That's why I list it very last. It is a good thing to be aware of for night waking, and a good thing to be aware of as your child gets older also. Okay, that wraps up what to do when your baby wakes shortly after bedtime. I do have a blog post all about this with a lot more detail written out if you'd like to read that and get more information about what to do. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments and I will answer. And thanks for watching and have a great day.